in that spirit, I might as well just start with another saying in Swahili. We usually say haba na haba hujaza kibaba, which means little by little we fill the pot. And so with the purposes of the meetings today and talking about franchising, we're trying to see how do we, with what we have now, shift the trajectory of Africa. So good morning, good afternoon, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, members of the press, standing on all protocols. I would want to say thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the Pan-African Chamber of Commerce and Industry, PACCI, or as we refer to it as PACCI. It's both a privilege and a responsibility to contribute to the important conversations as we draw closer to the African Caribbean Franchise Exhibition in Lagos. So allow me to also extend our sincere appreciation to the CEO Drawing Board 7.0 for envisioning and launching this remarkable initiative, where, as Funmi mentioned in the beginning, it's not about words, but putting action. So looking at more than 100 franchises by the end of the year. So it's through such platforms that the spirit of enterprise, collaboration, and innovation is truly brought to life. We acknowledge and thank the esteemed partners whose contributions have made this event up to this stage possible, as we look forward to it, with PACCI, Arrow Technology, the Nigerian South African Chamber of Commerce, Lagos Chamber of Commerce, NACIMA, Tele Global, Badvela Filipino, Delicious Treats Franchise, Standard Chartered Bank, and Bon Voyage. I recognize each one of them because, as I mentioned, haba na haba hujaza kibaba. The only way we get things moving is when we take responsibilities for whatever role we can play. And I would also, by extension, want to thank Dana, who's my colleague from PACCI, who has been coordinating with the team from the Pan-African Chamber of Commerce and Industry. So today we are meeting about this powerful moment in our journey as a continent and beyond, where we are talking about a shared history within and that of the Caribbean, beyond where we're trying to find meaning in a future shaped by collaboration, innovation, and enterprise. So let me begin with this other simple proverb that is quite common and most used, that if you want to go fast, you go alone, but if you want to go further, you go together. So this is not just about a proverb, it's about a wisdom. It's our roadmap. The African Continental Free Trade Area, as been mentioned by the previous speakers, is the bridge we're building together. It's connecting the 55 countries over the 1.4 billion people and unlocks a combined GDP of more than 3.4 trillion US dollars. And in one of the meetings I was in recently with the trading companies, they asked that, yes, we talk about this market of $3.4 trillion. But the question is, what share of that is African bread share? Are we opening it up just to say that, yes, this is available for the whole continent? Or are we also opening it up for the rest of the world? So as we talk about these numbers, we also have to consider what our shares are. So it is the most ambitious economic integration project of our time, but it will only deliver results if we design it to include everyone, from remote grassroots entrepreneur to the largest urban enterprise. So why franchising and why now? It's because franchising has proven to be a path to scalability and ownership. It allows for people with limited capital to operate within a tested system. So franchising is like a medicinal recipe, as an example. Someone already has that product, they know which ingredients work best, and they now share that recipe with you. You follow the steps, you use your own ingredients, you sell the product in your own town. So it still is your business, but you're now part of something much bigger. So when we take this idea to an African context, we imagine a tailor in urban Nigeria as an example, who makes high quality school uniforms. So through a franchise model, that tailor could partner with 5 others within West Africa, use the same brand, same materials, and same training. This not only guarantees the quality and trust, but it also spreads that opportunity. So with the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, a single business registration could allow them to operate beyond borders without starting from scratch every other time. That is the one African market and how it can look like. It says that if I'm seated in Kenya right now, I can be able to get investments or start a business in Namibia without thinking about the borders as the basis, but rather that every other African has an opportunity across the continent. So the local business scaling beyond local borders creates jobs at every stop. So in Africa, where we're talking about 80% of employment being driven by micro, small, and medium enterprises, franchising can uplift our communities by bringing structured models into everyday commerce. This is something that has been reflected by the previous speakers. So from agri-processing to mobile repairs to local fashion to services, these models offer growth rooted in local realities. So the opportunity then is about creating trust and consistency. We have seen the evolution of the ACFTA from having the ACFTA Guided Trade Initiative with a couple of countries that took on board the opportunity to really advocate for the ACFTA, to then shifting to an ACFTA trading company model, which is almost similar, not necessarily to franchising, but rather aggregating products in order to meet the needs of other African markets. But the challenge that is being faced right now is that for most of these aggregation models, there's not consistency and you don't have the brand or the quality and trust within that model. So you tend to see with franchising, having put a baseline of what needs to be followed across can create that level of trust and reliability across the market. Again, evolving how we are approaching the ACFTA. So we say that franchising should not just be a form of importing, but it should also be a form of domestic value and creation. So it will be unfair on my part not to even speak of who us as the Pan-African Chamber of Commerce are contributing towards this mission. We were established in 2009 through the collective mission of around 35 national chambers of commerce who wanted to create a platform to respond as the private sector to the boosting intra-Africa trade back then in 2012, which is now the ACFTA. So we represent over 50 national and regional chambers of commerce working together to unlock Africa's potential from the grassroots to the continental stage. So that means we are the backbone of local economies from Abuja to Eldoret, Cotonou to Garoua. Chambers and business support organizations are hubs of energy, youth, and enterprise. So we've been doing this with the Boosting Intra-Africa Trade, which is part of the reason why we partner with organizations such as the CEO Drawing Board, looking at franchising as one component of it, improving the productive capacity of SMEs, which is another reason why we correlate with the franchising model, promoting climate resilience, which ensures that businesses are equipped to adapt and lead in ever-changing environment, fostering gender-responsive entrepreneurial environment where we have gender equality seals that can be used within business support organizations as well as within companies, so that as we are talking about again with the ACFTA and like a section of it to the Protocol for Women and Youth, it can correlate. Last but not least, there's been mention about policy and how do we influence policy. We have been pushing for an Africa Private Sector Hearings policy approach as part of the Africa Private Sector platform, which is being pushed by the ACFTA, with the intention of furthering the discussions on harmonization of policies. So this is where you'd see the franchise model presenting its case at any one of these hearings to convince governments, but also present data-backed approaches that then they can be able to see what they can be able to take on or ease the environment of doing business as a franchise. So last but not least, I'll just say that in the short term, we're looking at, yes, logistics as last mile delivery as ways to simplify trade rules. We must also make it that not only goods move faster, but people also move within the continent. This has been a consistent conversation that without people moving, it's not easy for them to build the trust for them to enter within a market. The other bit is on agribusiness franchising. Africa is known that one of our biggest exports lies in this particular line of business. So how do we model that and again replicate across the continent? So this means building local, or rather to scale local food processing, packaging, and export readiness. So this is where you can also look at the ACFTA trading companies model, shifting from more of aggregation, but looking into franchising as a proposal. Then, of course, digital commerce infrastructure. That's how we cut across the red tape. Right now, we are here having this conversation. I'm in Nairobi. We have Shona joining us as well from where she is. And we're all having this conversation creating progress. So how do we do that as well with the tools for doing business? That means access to finance, you need information, trainings, capacity development. So the private sector can lead and should lead these shifts. So the governments provide the framework, but it is the businesses supported with BSOs, backed by data and united across regions that will translate that policy into jobs, into business. So let me close with another saying. I've been really loving African sayings, but I think it's how we connect. The wisdom is like a baobab tree. No one person can embrace it. So the vision and mission that we have for the ACFTA, connecting the African continent to the Caribbean to diaspora, requires all of us connecting our gained knowledge up to this stage and seeing how we harmonize those processes from the policy side of it, the technical expertise, the financing, talent as well, which is something that we've also been discussing on matters of AI and how that is incorporated, to build on the model such as that of franchising to get us to an economic one African market. So we thank the partnership with ACFE. We definitely look forward not only for us to participate, but it'll also be a learning lesson for us to understand more about the industry so that as we are representing the businesses within the franchising space, we are also well informed. So thank you very much for your attention, and I hand over the floor to you.